John Summers is the motoring historian. He was a company car thrashing technology sales rep that turned into a fairly inept sports bike rider. Hailing from California, he collects cars and bikes built with plenty of cheap and fast, and not much reliable. On his show, he gets together with various co hosts to talk about new and old cars, driving, motorbikes, motor racing, and motoring travel.
Good day, good morning, good afternoon. It's John Summers, the motoring historian, with his not just one school friend, but two school friends today, Mark Gammy and Dinsmore Greep. Introduce yourself, gents.
Friend was a bit strong.
Friend was a bit strong, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't rank above an acquaintance, I don't think.
Yeah, no, but really, I feel like in some ways this pod has been a bit disingenuous because really it was always the three of us rather than just the two of us, although the two of us were always more about cars. Hence today's episode, because Greep, you spent many years driving vans, did you not?
I did indeed, yeah. Firstly, it started off up in Worcester, working for that reclamation charity that was set up by the guy that owned Worcester Warriors Rugby Club, and set up Worcester Bosch, the boiler company over here as well. But yeah, so that job working for this charity was to drive around various businesses in the West Midlands and collect stuff that would otherwise go to landfill that we would then take back to the warehouse and sell to schools and clubs and things so they can use them for various bits of arts and crafts. So yeah, that was my first experience of driving vans. They were long wheelbase Mercedes Sprinters, which were tasty bits of kits as far as vans goes.
Yeah,
I think your average white van driver will go one of two ways with their van aspirations, I feel. And that'll either be like the Volkswagen Transporter, but with alloy wheels and, chrome and blacked out mirrors around the back and all that sort of thing. Or, the Mercedes Sprinter for your proper working man.
But you can do 85 in the Sprinter.
Yes.
Well, okay, so what year Sprinter are we talking about?
Well, when I was working there, what have I been down back here, 11 years now, so yeah, like around 2010.
Okay.
I mean, I couldn't say exactly, but around that sort of era, I reckon.
And they were manual transmission?
Yeah, manual transmission.
5-speed?
5-speed, just beginning to bring in USB ports.
And with that 2.7 CDI motor that went
normally
in
2.2, I think they were, but torqued up.
What, sorry?
2.2 litre engines the majority of the time, I think. Don't know.
And good for that. And single rear wheel?
Yes, on the Sprinter, yeah.
And good for that 85, or good for better than that, as the Gammy was?
Depending on the load, obviously. But yes. And what I liked about it was my first experience of having cruise control as well. Where you could
yeah,
and it just set the speed. And what I liked about that is that it wouldn't slow down, but you could overtake. You could put your foot down and release the gas pedal, and it would go back to what you set your cruise speed at. But yeah, if you braked, it would clear your cruise speed and wouldn't pick up for you again after that.
So did it have did it have a column for that?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that
just a little
that
lever on the steering
yeah.
column.
Now, I don't know what you found, but in my experience, this is a total hobby horse of mine. This is one of the things that I think Mercedes drivers understand and non-Mercedes people don't. Is there's little design things that make Mercedes better to drive, and I think that cruise control being on the stalk is definitely one of them. I did a long journey in the Mustang just recently, and it has one of these cruise controls where you have to like switch the button on and then push another button to set the speed. And it's not the end of the world, but it means that you only use it on the freeway. Whereas a Mercedes cruise control, you can use that in the way that you would use an old-fashioned overdrive, like cruising between traffic lights, because you can just flick it on as easy as knocking an indicator on and off. So that's my aside on indicators.
Yeah, and as long as you didn't hit the brake, it would like do the pickup for you. You know, it'd accelerate for you to your set speed and everything.
Whereas the Mercedes Sprinter fridge vans that Sainsbury's had were slow as fuck. They were not, and they were autos, and they were pants. They were usable pieces of kit, but they neutered them so they wouldn't do any more than 55. I had 65, 67 out of it, but I had to knock it into neutral down a really long.
So what year was this?
Like teens, 20 teens.
Teens. So it would have been a teens. This is a teen Sprinter.
Yeah, early teens.
with another diesel with that same 2.2 diesel.
2.2 diesel with the fridge and the freezer bit on the back.
And a high body, so really bad aero.
Really bad aero, yeah.
Bad handling too.
Well, I mean, you've got a real load full of like refrigerated goods strapped in crates to the side of the walls of the van. You're not exploring the limits of grip here. So
you mean you never did?
Not really. I mean, like the thing will do 55 miles an hour and handles like a small barge. So you know, it's.
But you had 65 out of it by getting into neutral. You were saying.
See, but no, I'm not sure about it. I don't think I wanted to hit 70 just to see. And they said, "Oh, you're not allowed to do any of that stuff because it's GPS tracked." And I was, and cowed by that. And then after about a bit in the van, you're thinking, like, "Oh, fuck off! Who's checking the GPS trails for that shit unless I have an accident?" So then it became a personal mission to see how fast I could get the van to go. I don't think I ever got 70, but as I say, after you went past 55, it wouldn't let you accelerate. The accelerator just did nothing. So you had to accelerate hard to 55 and then hit it into neutral as you were going down a long hill. But with it,
But Birdlip Hill.
Birdlip would have been a dream, but that wasn't in my catchment area. I didn't roam to Birdlip in the short period I worked for them in between jobs. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, hey, on the other hand, I looked after my vans. I never had any van, let's say for argument's sake, burned to the ground.
Well, it's funny because we were talking of doing this podcast. I was like looking back on my time driving vans because I've always considered, in rose-tinted glasses, that driving the vans for as long as I did made me a better driver, just all round. More aware, able to jump in any vehicle and just drive it. And the spatial awareness is much better and that sort of thing. And I, would pat myself on my back by I really learned from that experience. And looking back, maybe I learned because of how many failures I had. And yes, one of the ones that you just referenced was I'd been asked by my boss at the food firm that I was working at to go and pick a van up from Exeter and drop one off.
This is from Plymouth.
Yeah, that's from Plymouth. So I bombed up the A38 and the M5 motorway to Exeter, picked up this van that just got a brand new reconditioned engine, and then started driving it back to Plymouth.
What was
it? A Sprinter again, I think. It might have been a transport, not the Crafter was the Volkswagen version on the same Sprinter platform. So it might have been one of those, but I think it was a
So
Sprinter.
it was the Sprint.
But-
So the Crafter, the Volkswagen Crafter, was basically a Sprinter that Volkswagen made under license.
Yes, and then
So it was their whose
flip
motor
side of
was
that-
it? It was the
oh, well, I don't know, but Fiat and Peugeot had the same sort of deal with their vans. They were the same platform. I think it might be Citroen as well, given that that's another French car company. So I think the Citroen Relay works van was on the same platform as the Fiat Ducato and the Peugeot, which I forget the
Boxer.
name of it. Boxer.
I
So
don't know how
yes,
I know that.
driving back from Exeter with this sort of van with a brand new reconditioned diesel engine,
Nice.
brand new reconditioned engine rather than brand new. Yes, driving along and yeah, just quite happy listening to some music, pooting along, and then a guy in a Peugeot Bipper, you know, one of those little vans on a car platform, came bombing past me and pulled up in front of me about 200 meters ahead of me. And he got out and he did the signal from South Park. You know,
The secret signal.
Yeah, the Team America World Police. What's the signal? he got out of his van and was running towards me, going like that. And I was like, what? And as soon as my foot touched the brake pedal, like literally the smoke, the cab filled with smoke, and every light on the dashboard came up. I was like, oh, right. And so yeah, but yeah, so I dived out of the van and stopped all the traffic coming from behind, and yeah, and there we were. Half an hour later, the van was a pit of melted tar on the road, and there was like about 8.
So was it? It was still in the carriageway.
I'd pulled it over onto the hard shoulder. Oh, I should say that I'd lost.
But it's the A38. It's only half a hard
Yeah,
shoulder.
I'd lost power, and I'd just gone back past this like parking 1/4 mile sign, and so I thought, clever old me, I'll just coast along the hard shoulder into the parking lay-by. So I wasn't doing like full speed along the motorway. So yeah,
okay.
so yeah.
So when you put the brakes on, the smoke came. When was the fire? And when did you get stopped? The smoke was when you were still rolling along.
No, there was no smoke when I was rolling along. As far as I was aware, I'd just lost power and was just
because it was all in a big comet-like cone behind you. Back to
I was just cruising, coasting, you know, freewheeling at the side of the road. And this, you're on fire!
like a spaceship on re-entry, just like.
yeah. And so yeah, dived out of the van, suffered a little bit of shock. Loads of bikers that I picture in my head were all Hell's Angels, but probably weren't, given that it's the south of England. You know, they gave me a couple of rollies and stuff, and then so I called work and called my boss and said, Howard, there's a problem with the van. And he went, oh, what is it? I went, it's no longer a van.
It's a traffic incident.
Yeah,
now.
well, I didn't know it was a proper traffic incident like that, but at the time. But then he sent another driver that had just finished his round to come pick me up, and he was maybe 10 miles from where I was, coming from Plymouth, and he said that you could see the column of smoke from the Marsh Mills roundabout. And it was on the local news, like a 10-mile tailback on the A38. yeah.
So has someone just not put oil in the fucking engine or something as dumb as that?
Well, officially, the story is that it was something wrong with the engine. Unofficially, I don't know if I maybe hadn't got out of fourth.
that shouldn't set the whole
No.
thing on fire.
No,
should it? I mean,
you know, but you know, I have never pilloried myself too much for that one because I'm not really certain. Because you know, you can drive on autopilot and things. And had just overtaken stuff when the power lost, and I was like, oh, I'm in fourth, but I had just overtaken, so you know, I might not have been in fourth from Exeter.
one way or the other, that should not. 1 + 1 in those circumstances does not equal several hours in a lay-by, by a barbecued van.
Yeah.
It actually reminds me of my mate Neil from university. He had a Ford Orion, and that Ford Orion suffered a very similar fate to your van.
What year?
Huh?
What year?
Ooh.
Pre-facelift or post-facelift? Did it have the grill?
I don't know. It was pre-university. It was a year or two before university, so it would have been like he had it. So it would have been like 91, something like that. If it was new, I don't think it was new. So it would have been like mid-80s at best. But anyway, I remember him telling me that he was driving along and then he stopped, and when he stopped at some traffic lights, smoke poured out all of the air vents. And he drove. He was like, "Uh-oh!" Drove it across round the corner and parked it up on the side of the road in front of a terrace street. And within minutes, it was a fireball. And the old lady that lived in the house there came out, and he ended up, when the fire brigade arrived, he was sitting on a deck chair that she brought out for him with a cup of tea, having a fag to calm his nerves. Whilst the thing was destroyed in front of him, immolated before him, much like you and your van.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you never want to say I've never rolled a car or I've never caught a car on fire, because you feel like you're tempting fate, don't you?
Yeah. Homos non urinat inventum, as it says in Amsterdam on the museum.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another of my I wish I'd never was driven through that dry stone wall outside the country estate in Cornwall, in yet another works van. I think this was a Fiat Ducato. And you know, I said you learn from, or I learned to be a better driver. So this was when I stopped eating when I was driving. Yeah, because I was reaching into my lunchbox for a crab stick to eat whilst driving, and then lost.
I love the way he remembers the exact food that he was eating at the
Dude, crab sticks are important, bro.
And lost the crab stick in the lunchbox. So then looked down, and then the road, disgustingly, outrageously decided to take a corner.
Oh,
yeah. And you mentioned earlier, like about not exploring the limits with your van because it could only do well. I did explore the limits of grip with this van at that point, and took it through those limits and through a dry stone wall, which caused the tyre to blow out. Luckily, that was what I told the boss happened. So
the tyre caused it rather than the crab stick.
I told the truth, but just the events maybe not in the right order. Yeah.
I did explore the limits of grip on a different van, the Citroën C35s that we had at Bombard in France. I once took that at full speed round the Amboise Bridge right up towards Limeray and got the back end of that van out, only at about 25 miles an hour, but I was not expecting that. And Furthermore, did you know? I know you did because I spoke to you about it. You can pull away a Citroen C35 van in the middle of two open traffic lights in fifth. If you put it in fifth, rev the nuts off it, and just dump the clutch and kangaroo down the road for about 400 yards. It's
Yeah,
doable.
those
Robust vehicle.
those C35 vans. The thing I always remember about them was, do you remember on one side the thread was clockwise on the wheels, and on the other side the thread was anti-clockwise. And the story went that once it had a flat tire, and people had spent like ages and got all these poles and all this kind of stuff, only to find that they were trying to turn the wheel nuts the wrong way, and that's why they couldn't take the wheels off them. So there was always, and and it's so crazy and so French that they should have them like that. I do remember the 5-speed transmission that they had. I remember the fact that in one of them, there were a couple of those C35 vans, weren't there? And I remember in one of them, if you were in like second, you could see through past the engine onto the pavement. You know, it was as you change gear, like the boot all moved around. The other van I remember,
the gear lever in fifth gear, you could move it in about a foot square without taking it out of fifth gear.
Yeah. Do you remember it had the other thing that I remember about those C35s was they had a grey Velia speedometer with like a sweep gauge. I loved the sweep gauge. Yeah. It was like a ribbon, and the needle did a sweep past it, because they were that Citroen was the same design as the contemporary Fiat Ducato, if that was the name. It was an Italian. It was like an Italian-French combination, if you can imagine anything.
Because it's kind of ridiculous. Like the UK licenses that we've all got entitle us to drive, isn't it up to like 3.5 ton box vans, like with
7.5.
7.5. That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's changed now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for good. I mean, I've driven them, but it's you have to be pretty on your case with your your sort of your spatial awareness points, because
dude, when I was a lad, like about Ollie's age, like 8 or 9, my dad rented a BRS Ford Cargo, like a box truck. We rented it with a friend, or I can't remember whether he was driving it, but I remember it's the first time I'd ever been in a truck, and it was one of those where me and my dad were on like the 2 passenger seats, and then there was the shift and the handbrake, and then my dad's mate driving the truck. But that was huge, and I couldn't believe that you could drive it on a car license. It's hard to believe now that in America you can, U-Haul will rent somebody who just got their driving license, driving around the block in Wisconsin. U-Haul in New York will let you rent a twin wheel V10, Luton top van towing a trailer on your car license. But I guess as you've observed many times before, Mark, it's about freedom.
It is.
The Bombard summer.
Decapitate passers-by.
The Bombard summer in France. The Mercedes 308. Do you remember that? It was slow, and the gearbox was a bit reluctant. That was like an 80s Mercedes, one of the ones where the indicators did the wraparound and had the little like strakes in them. But that was the first van where I had that feeling of independence, where it was mine, my domain. I love the fact that you could have a nap in the back of it, you could have a pee in the back of it. It was like your own private space. I also love the fact that people got out of the way. Like, it was the first time I'd ever had that white van man experience with people getting out of the way. Now,
that's definitely a thing. People avoiding you, definitely. Yeah.
Does the van need to be white?
No, a work van, either plain or emblazoned. But if you've got like alloys on and things like that, your average driver will spot that that's not a work van and won't treat it the same way.
Yeah. Dens, I've so whilst I've got you on here, let me do these questions with you now. What of the vans that you drove over the years that you were, what was the best one?
There wasn't really a best one because each had, depending on what you were looking for, each had their high point. When I was working at Olympia Foods, when they got the new Fiat Ducato in, that was the one that everyone wanted to fight
What
over
year was that?
initially. That must have been like 2010, something like that, I think. But that the torque on those meant, do you know the big hill just outside of Exeter where the A380 to go down towards Torquay splits off from the A38 and you go up that hill?
Yeah, Holden
That's
Hill.
Holden Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Fiat Ducato could do that with the Olympia Foods display stand stuff and equipment from, you know, the West Country Food Show, up that at 65, 70 without needing to drop a gear. Whereas the Sprinters couldn't. But the Sprinters had the USB slot and the cruise control and slightly comfier driving position.
Important detail.
But then and then the Renault Master was the smallest van, but it had the for your reverse parking, which when you're a delivery driver, you know, trying to get into tight spots down on St Ives Harbour, that was definitely a bonus having the reverse parking sensors.
Yeah,
because every other van, the sensor was, oh yeah, I've hit the wall.
I feel given we're talking about proximity driving, you ought to tell the story of your first day in the van, and the fact that the GPS kind of nudged you pretty hard.
So yes, at Olympia Foods, I'd recently got the job, and I'd done my training, which was to go out with the more experienced drivers and get shown various runs and things like that. And yes, and then one day, 2 weeks sooner than it should have been, Paul, the warehouse manager, said, "Oh, I'm sending you to Dartmouth." I was like, "Brilliant! Yeah, I know where Dartmouth is." And of course, knowing where something is and actually, you know, driving in and around it, looking for various businesses, are completely different matters, you know. And I now know that Dartmouth is actually like a boot. You know, you come down, you go along the harbour, come round the one-way street, and then out of Dartmouth, and that's it. That's all you have to do. But I didn't know that because it wasn't a run that I'd been shown. So I was in a VW Crafter, hired, not even owned by the company, hired for the summer. Sent out into Dartmouth and the South Hams run, which I hadn't been shown. And I had my dad's old sat-nav, which we'll now call forevermore shat-nav. So driving into Dartmouth, and imagine, you know, I'm driving down the car for the boot, and what I need to do is go down to the heel and then come along the sole, and then I can do all the deliveries around the harbour, and then come back along the toe, and then up along the shin of the boot, if you like, to get out of Dartmouth again. No, my sat-nav decided, why it's be a much better idea if you drive through all the little, you know, 17th century fisherman's village streets and roads to drop you down into the harbour that way. And of course, I was like, all right, yeah, Mr. Shatnav, I will follow what you say. So I start driving down these tight ass, like little streets.
It's a long wheelbase, the Crafter's long wheelbase.
This one actually wasn't, because it was a hire van. So it was just, I mean, it wasn't a short wheelbase vehicle, you know, it's still like anyway, I was going down these like little lanes, like little ginnels, back lanes, whatever. I'd only done about 100 meters and I already decided I'm not reversing out here because, you know, some of the corners that I've been round, I can't physically see to reverse back round. So I was right, it's forge forward, you know. And so forward I went, and then maybe 200 more meters, I then went down some steps.
Always a good sign
Literally
on a road, I feel.
2 or 3 steps on a road, and that's when I really knew I was in trouble. What's that meme go? That's when he knew he fucked up. Yeah. So, and I probably would have got away with the whole experience if there wasn't scaffolding down this street that I was driving down. So, down some steps, which you don't want to do in a work van anyway, you know. Like,
No.
and I've already had to wind down the windows to pull in the mirrors because the street I'm driving down is so tight. And then I like get to this little bit, and there's a scaffold tower up on this little cottage, but it's not like traditional because, you know, it's a really, really tight lane. So it's only sticking out about a foot, the scaffold poles, but on the passenger side of the van.
Right.
So I go, no worries. I line up, you know, like this, so I can like judge the distance, right, and drive along and clear the scaffolding. Absolutely brilliant. However, the cottage on the driver's side of the road, about 3 feet up, or 3 feet of height, it stuck out about a foot from the rest of the wall, a little buttress. Yeah. And so I'm driving along, and of course, on the Sprinters, it has the slightly toed-in nose on it, make it look a bit more aerodynamic, which leaves just a shoulder of your tyre exposed. And that got caught on the buttress. But unbeknownst to me, who couldn't see that this was sticking out, so I'll floor it, get through. You know, that'll be the answer. So, and it wasn't. I did get through, but not without incident, because the 2 steering wheels were, they call it Dagenham Dartford. One of them was pointing at like 12, and the other was pointing at like 2 o'clock. So the steering wheels are like that, and so I drove down, got to a little safer area where I could park up and like not block traffic and stuff, and then phoned the boss up saying, "Oh, this is my first day out by myself, and I've ruined a hire van." And I don't think I'm going to have a career here very long. Yeah. So he sent out one of the warehouse staff to come along and fit a new tyre because it had popped, obviously. And he couldn't because there was no tyre replacement. Each van is supposed to have like a kit to enable you to replace a wheel. But the torque wrench handle was about 9 inches long. Whereas if you have a professional tyre fitter turn up, their torque wrench handles are like, 1.5 meters long. So trying to untorque a buckled wheel with a 9-inch wrench handle, it just bent. So yeah, we then had to call the RAC out, but this warehouse driver, he couldn't get the van out of the space that I'd parked it in amongst these garages and stuff like that. And for me to get down onto the harbour, call the RAC to come and sort the wheel out. Boss, but they're pointing at like 12 and 2 o'clock. And he went, just fucking do the run. So after about a 5-hour delay, I got going again and then spent the whole rest of the... I think I drove about another 6 hours with that van, with the steering wheel constantly cranked over as hard as I could manage it, just to drive in a straight line.
Oh, man.
You remember?
So,
you remember I had that transit for that summer in England. This is a story that my family know, but you don't. This is just a vignette. I was staying in hotels, and when you buy beer, it's not very economical, is it, to buy like individual cans? It makes more sense to buy a 6-pack, and when you go from, there's usually a ice making machine or a fridge or something like that in the room you're staying in, so you can chill the beer in your well. Anyway, long and short, I had a spare can of beer in my suitcase when I had that transit, and I only had a suitcase, and I just thought, at first I tried to like attach it to the side of the van, but after a bit I was just like, because I live in San Francisco where there's loads of car break-ins, right? This van had a bulkhead. It was a silver Transit. It's the thumbnail of episode 2 or 3, one of those. But either way, it's a silver Transit. It had a bulkhead, so you had to get into the back. You had to get out of the cab, right? And so what that meant was any valuables that were in the cab were visible from the. So I put my suitcase in the back so it wasn't visible, right? And it slid around a bit, and I was fine with it sliding around, or thought I was, but anyway, long and short, I thought I was fine with it, but it split a can of beer and pissed beer all over all my stuff. So I had all these like nice clean shirts and jeans and things for later in the trip, and all of them were there were rare books. Everything is stinking now of cheap beer, and I wish I'd just gone to the hotel bar and not been such a fucking skinflint.
Yeah.
I can't believe we've got this far through this van episode without mentioning my brown Ford Econoline van and one
kiddie fiddler van.
Absolutely, yeah. It does it and I would highlight just one story in particular. Gammy, when you stayed, and there are 2 streets in California, in San Francisco, that have trams on them, California Street and Powell Street. And we were driving up California Street and managed to get one of the wheels. It was raining, and we managed to get one of the wheels on the. And I remember, I can't remember whether you or I were driving, but I do remember the wheels spinning, and I remember being able to see down the hill out of one of the side windows of the van.
There was tyre smoke pissing past, and it was like the whole time everyone was looking. My other memory of that van is that I got out. I've got a video somewhere of it where we were. I think we'd been to see. And didn't we go and see Judas Priest in it?
Yeah, we went to see Judas Priest in San Jose.
Yeah, with Steel Panther supporting. Good gig.
Yeah.
Good gig.
Tickets for free in the crowd. Who knew? But that's the Steel Panther effect. But yeah, we went to sit, and I remember you went in you'd parked in front of a no parking sign, and I got out to take a photo of the van in front of the no parking sign, which I've still got. I'll send it to you. And I did a little caned video of the sort of the motion control that you had on the seat. i.e. that it only had one bolt holding the seat down, so you could basically rock the seat around completely all over the show.
Because Mark's dogs had chewed up the original vinyl seat. So I went to a pick and pull, and I got this lovely velour seat.
It was comfortable.
Yeah. It was from the Chateau, like shag wagon version of the Econoline. And I assumed that the seat would fit. Notice that, assumed that the seat would fit. It wasn't, the mounting points were different sizes. So I could only mount the seat on one side. So yeah, it did swing. But do you remember it had an armrest? It was that kind of purplish velour, wasn't it?
It was lovely. It was a super comfortable seat.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that was striking about that van was it was owned by Stanford before me. And so it existed. It was like a 92. So it existed from like 92 to 2008 without hardly any rust, because it lived down on the peninsula where it's dry. Street parking in San Francisco with all the salt air, the leading edge of the trunk just rusted off completely. I mean, that's how much the rust just completely attacked it. Do you remember? It had that scrape down the side, and that rusted and ran. The rust streaks ran down the
Had
side.
moss on the window ledge as well.
It did, yeah, which didn't blow
right,
off. It just stayed
No.
there and kept growing. You know, the other thing that I remember about that Judas Priest night with it was that you said, as we were walking back to the car, you were like, I get this van. That van is a fuck you to everybody. And it really was. And that was sort of why I got rid of it, because I wanted to not be that. It was just offensive. Whether if you didn't like cars, it was polluting and took up a lot of parking space. It was, when you parked in a parking spot, people used to be annoyed because it was so big. It meant that they couldn't open their car door to get out, and people didn't want this ugly van next to this molestery looking van.
But it didn't take up 8 spots like the van did on Slater's Stag Do.
What is that 8 spot story? I don't even know that story. That I actually had that on my agenda of stories to cover, mainly because I don't actually know that story. That wasn't a Sherpa that you drove on Slater's Stag Do.
It was an LDV of some sort, I think.
I remember the photos, and it was a Julie. It was like a Julie Sherpa.
Oh, yeah.
But it was badged LDV by then, like the later.
It was a horrible van to drive in anyway. It, like the driver and the passenger in the front seats sat right on the engine. And so all hot air just comes up through the floor and just, chokes you. So I wouldn't ever get one of those vans or drive one of those vans again. But yes, it was on the Stag, and everybody got tanked up whilst I was driving along, and it was decided to stop at a motorway services for sustenance, like Ginster's pasties and such like. Yeah,
marvelous.
So pull into
other such high class delicacies. Yeah,
yeah. So we pull into the parking area. It's not very busy. What is it, about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that on a Sunday or something? And I just to get into the spirit of things, because I wasn't drinking and everybody else was, I was like, right, watch this, lads. And just, I pulled up on 8 parking spots. So the van was 4 parking spots long.
Crossways.
And so, and I just did a crossways. So I was taking up 8 spots.
On the gap between the 2 rows of space, because I wasn't in the van, I was driving in a different car. I remember arriving and seeing me parked in 8 spaces.
What was the worst van you drove, Greek?
That one.
It was terrible.
What was the fastest van you drove?
The Ford Transit turbos that the plumbing firm used to have.
What year Transit is that?
I mean, that was when I worked at the PSS Midlands. So we're talking 2000, 2002, something like that, maybe.
All right.
But the Fords, like at the food firm, Howard would never buy the Fords because they were more expensive to get than the Mercedes. Because your entry-level Transit had more bells and whistles and bigger engine and that sort of thing than the Sprinter.
Interesting. How many miles were you doing when you were van driving like that all the time? How many miles a year were you doing?
A year, I don't know, but I could do 1250 in a week, 250 a day.
Yeah, so I'm not going to try and do the maths on that, but
60,000 a year.
Yeah,
60. That is. But that's on lanes in Devon and Cornwall, isn't it? That's no highway miles at all.
Going to your delivery area and coming back was obviously on main roads, but then the rest of the time you are driving down cobble streets and to beaches and across fields and things like that. Gated communities down in Cornwall that you have to radio in, and they'll open the gate, and then you drive a mile over a field to deliver to some hippie cafe that only serves people that are walking on the coastal path out of their kitchen window, sort of crap,
Huh.
Coils of the serpent unwind. Buried beneath your vine. Deep in the heart of the dead. Spirits in black till the end.
People get real parochial about fucking bands as well. I mean, the amount of time I remember I was driving like somewhere around in Reading. No, I was in Reading. No, it would have been Newbury. And I went up this street and I was like, oh, bugger, I'm going to have to turn around. And there was a double paved drive, like really like 2.5 drives wide. Like, and I thought, so I like checked, no problem, reversed into it, only about half onto it, just enough so I could turn around in the road and head down the street. Guy and his wife out of the house, running down the street after me, screaming at the top of his lungs. I stopped and was like, is everything all right, mate? I thought I'd run over his cat or something. You know what I mean? It was like that. It was that sort of, absolute apoplectic rage. And he just ranted at me. And I won't bore you with it, other than to say he basically affronted that I'd used his drive to turn around on. That was it.
Yeah, I know. I've turned round in driveways where they've hung on chains, like across the mouth of the driveway, like, please do not turn here. I just make a point of touching the nose of the car on that sign when I turn.
Well, I mean, I don't think we engaged in endeared ourselves to the neighbours, because didn't you? We used to do that geezer across the way in Harcourt Drive. Remember, we used to drive into his drive and turn round after he came out. He'd look out the window every day.
We'd wave.
I'd have shades on, just look at him.
Was it Harcourt Drive, the one where we tore up? There was like a grass verge, and we had shitty cars in front of the house.
Yeah.
And the landlord had inconsiderately used the garage, and so we had to park our drive.
Well, we didn't know when we rented the house. We didn't know we couldn't use the garage. I was like, "This is perfect. We've got a garage and a drive for 2 cars. We can get stuff in there and work in the garage." It was only after we moved in they were like, "Fuck you, can't use the garage."
Yeah. I didn't realize that. But do you remember that was when we had that Alpha 33 on the lawn?
Yeah, the neighbours hated us pretty quickly after we moved in with our detritus of cars that never moved anywhere, and we didn't mow the back lawn.
Hippies use the rear entrance.
The other thing is, the mowing of the back lawn. I remember having my leather coat on backwards and going at it with Slater's 2-stroke strimmer, like I would play like it was some kind of jungle in suburban Reading.
But you remember the neighbours were good mates with the landlord, so they rang up and grassed us up.
Oh, I don't remember that. No.
Yeah. That's why that biatch of us, an estate agent, rang us up and was strobing at us, because the neighbours had rung the landlord, who'd rung them, who didn't know anything about it, and had rung us to rant at us. And we were like, well, we'll get the garden cut before we move out. What's the deal? They were like, rah, 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 you've got to cut the grass. We were like, oh, it's like knee high now. I mean, it's like a meadow.
Yeah. I remember you saying that it needed to be done, and me agreeing that it needed to be done and not doing it, and you being like, mate, it's got to be done, and me feeling an ass for not doing it more promptly. I do remember that.
Well, it wouldn't have been an issue if it wasn't for the snitch neighbours. Basically.
Well, looking back, it was out of order that it was a nice suburban house, and I remember some of it being above my head, and this was like the back garden.
Yeah, it was pretty long. I mean, these days we just put up a little sign calling it an eco grove or something, and we'd win an award. Rewilding. We'd fucking win an award or something. A Titchmarsh should be down there doing a documentary about it, past the rusting Sierra and behind the Capri.
Yeah. Well, both of those would be super collectible and valuable now, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
I mean, a bloke. Do you remember a bloke knocked on the door of that house to try and buy that Capri off me? I fucking should have, shouldn't I? Because it probably would have lived on. And now it's gone to the DVLA in the sky. Whilst we've pivoted on to cars, Greep, you run that Corsa VXR in that rather lurid blue. How's it treating you?
Yeah, I do. Well, having been driving it quite a lot just recently because I'm back in the office, say about 50% of the time, it's been treating me well. It is. It's a lovely little car to drive.
Punchy, is how I would
All the
describe
poker that I'll ever need. Couple of decent corners, both to and from work, where you can properly power through them. Exit speed,
it. Which corners?
When you join the A38 from Lee Mill,
Yeah.
You come in under the bridge, and then
Yeah. Oh, and then up the on ramp. Yeah. That's a good corner. Okay,
that corner.
Only because we all know this bit of road really well.
Yeah.
Know which corners. Yeah, that is a good bit of road. Yeah, go on in.
Well, and then the same coming off if you get
and then the same. Yeah. Okay, cool.
If you get the traffic lights coming up Marsh Mill, you've got the on ramp up there as well.
Yeah, if you get fortunate with it, you need to be late into the first one, don't you? So that it's gone green for the next two. Yeah.
That climb up Marsh Mill, one of my salient teenage memories is doing that in remember Muir's girlfriend, Andrew Muir, his girlfriend, her dad had a used car lot, and he had a brown Mitsubishi Starion, Sapporo, not Starion, off that lot one time. And I remember that was the first time I did more than 120 miles an hour in a car up Marsh Mills, because it was off the roundabout, and Muir just launched it, and I was like, fucking hell, I'd never been in a car that pulled past 100 miles an hour like that before. It was a life-changing moment for me. Mark, that M2, how's it treating you now? I
haven't touched it, to be honest. It's my project I've got a bunch of stuff on car-related issues I'm working on this week. So the battery's flat in it, because obviously with Angie's illnesses and stuff, I basically didn't drive it anywhere. So it's battery's flat and it needs an MOT. So that's happening like as soon as they can book it in. I needed to get a new battery in the Z and get the Z running to get that out of the way, to get it into the garage to charge it. So that's that, which has now happened. The Z lives again, which is great. It was nice to hear it fire up. I put the battery in it, and it just went no. And I thought, oh, bollocks. And I thought, honestly, I bought that battery like a few months ago, so I whacked it on charge, and the next morning it was like, oh yeah, no problem, straight up. So I'm going to do some work on the Z, just some fairly basic stuff. I've got to get the that under tray thing ordered from Nissan, and I looked under the bonnet. There's loads of like bolts on there that are just like little stubby sort of like nut and washer bolts, like one-piece jobs that are all rusted, and they look awful, and they're all rusted, and they're like nothing. So I'm just going to buy a load of those and get that replaced whilst I'm doing some other bits and bobs with it. But no, the M2 is going to get fixed, or I'm going to flog it because I'm not enjoying it. Then I'm getting the CBR fixed up as well, because that just needs I've got a battery for that, and that just needs an MOT, and then I can start using that again. So, I will report back next pod on how we've got on with it, and how well BMW have serviced me with my extended warranty, and whether they've actually fixed the things.
I think I do feel bad for you with that M2 with the juddery brakes. That's the thing that stuck in my mind from you moaning in the other pod.
Well, that's the major structural problem that ruins the driving experience. There's loads of other tinkery issues that don't work on it that have just been a bollockake. But I'm sure they'll fix all those. It's will they fix the big one? Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. I'm jumping around here, Greet, but I watch these like used car channel guys, and they're always like, "Oh, Corsa timing chain." So is that? I mean, does it? How many miles does yours have on it now?
Coming up on 35.
Oh, all right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Because apparently the timing chains stretch and rattle. And I guess I have some empathy with you, because that also happens on Suzuki GSX-Rs. And I have a bike, like a fairly high mile one, that recently had some work done to it. And the idea was it fixed that, and it's as rattly now as it was before. And you're like, well, that's marvelous. I spent thousands of dollars to get exactly the same thing as I had before.
When I put my foot down in the Corsa, it still gives me the goosebumps that it did on the test drive, which is why I bought it. I mean, prior to the test drive, I was which ST am I going to have? Am I going to have, go back to my Focus ST, the old 2.5, because I had found a fairly decent, I think it was $9,000 one up in Tavistock. But I drove it and it just felt floaty and heavy. Yeah, it had the good noise, the 2.5 turbo engine, and when it dumped, it gives you a little semi every time. And then I drove Angie's, not Angie's one, but the Fiesta ST, and that felt tighter. And and Dana's got one, or you've got one as well. But I did enjoy that. But then when I got in the Corsa, it just felt tighter. It felt more like a racehorse that you're like. It's on the bridle sort of thing, but it's all pumped up and ready to go.
Alrighty, we've talked for over an hour now, so I'm going to go on to the quick fire phase now. But before I do that, you're probably aware I break up episodes now when we pivot from one topic to another, or when I do a choppy edit. I break it up with a little bit of heavy metal. I was going to do Only Slayer for this episode. I don't need to explain to you boys why Only Slayer. What I was going to suggest was what little clips should I use? I tend to use like 30 seconds. What little clips when I say, if you were going to theme this episode with a breakup sections with a few little bits of Slayer, what little bit of Slayer would you boys be thinking of?
The intro to Die by the Sword.
Yeah.
That's the one where it's the in one ear and then the other ear and stuff, isn't it?
No, I think that's Behind the Crooked Cross.
Oh, is it?
Which
Okay,
I already
that
had
one
in
then.
mind. Yeah.
That one then.
All right. Yeah. Dens?
What's the one that?
South of Heaven.
Yeah.
Before you see the light, you must die.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
An unforeseen future nestles somewhere in time. Unsuspecting victims, no warnings, no signs. Judgment Day, the second coming arrives. Before you see the light, you must
All right. Well, that's I'll definitely be able to use that bit. All right. Quick fire. My first car, that orange Cortina that I had. What's your primary memory of it?
That had a 9.1 litre engine.
Definitely 9.1, yeah.
So I guess the car was a 1.6, but the badge kept falling off because the trunk lid, the boot lid, had got rusty. So the badge where it said Cortina 1.6, it rusted and fell off. So it'd been stuck on with sellotape and it kept on falling, whatever. One time my dad suggested that I file the top of the one off and then matte black the rest of it because the badge was all black, and then stick it on the wrong way up. So it said Cortina 9.1.
Can I just say, I know you're on your quick fire round, but can you beat this as a first car story? Yeah, my first car was a Vauxhall Cavalier SRI. Do you remember this? That I bought off Jackie and then sold to Gav. So he could have
do, but it didn't work.
Stereo.
It didn't work.
No, I never drove it. Couldn't drive it. Bought it for 50 quid and sold it for Gav for, I think, 200.
Cha-ching!
I didn't know it was an SRI. What colour was it?
Yeah. White.
Yeah, yeah, white. I remember it being parked at the back. Didn't it like have a window that wouldn't go up or something?
No, that was the was it 209, 309 that I had?
That would just randomly lower the
You
window.
had a
Yeah, yeah.
Peugeot 309?
Yeah, that was what I used to come down to visit you guys in when I first passed my test.
Really?
Wasn't it red?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? What motor
thought-
did it have?
An internal combustion engine.
Didn't they have like a 1.5 or something? Or-
Yeah, it wasn't.
All right, next quick fire. What's your most recent moment? I don't mind going first.
Yeah,
The most recent one for me, when I went to get this K5 serviced with John, he was going to put lower clip-ons on it. He was going to take the factory exhaust off and put the Remus one on. And I was worried it was going to spoil the bike's character. It was going to, make it more like the other Gixxers that are too hardcore for me to feel comfortable riding. And I was worried it was going to spoil its character. So I thought, but it needed the valves adjusting, it needed the service, it needed care and feeding. So it was, it was going to go under the knife, and I was worried its character was going to change afterwards. So I went out for a little ride and did something that I've not done for a long time, which is really open the throttle on it properly. And I guess because of the seasons here, when it rains, the sun bakes the tarmac and makes it all melt and get all bubbly, and then it rains and the people drive over it. Either way, the surface of the roads have these sort of quite often quite large potholes. They might be like an inch deep, but with quite a rough edge on it. Either way, the kind of pothole which would have you off on a sports bike at the kind of speed that I was doing, and going in between, seeing two of these potholes and being like, oh, that foot wide area in between them will be fine, and going in between them at a significant rate of speed. That was the most recent time where I was like, it wasn't really like a sphincter clencher. It was more of a, I'm too old to be doing this and riding in this kind of way and having to make those kind of decisions. So that's mine.
So mine is just harking back to what we were saying, the entry onto the A38 from Marsh Mills roundabout. You're coming up the hill to join the main road, and it's only when you're about 2/3, 3/4 of the way up that you can see if there's any
Because it's
traffic
above you,
on the
yeah.
lanes.
Yeah.
Because it's above you, yeah. And there's always that moment when you get there and there's like some sort of like 18-wheeler juggernaut on the inside lane, and he's going to come across you, but he's 200 meters ahead of you, and you've only got 400 meters of the road left. What are you going to do? Floor it, of course. Yeah. And the responsiveness of your 200 horses VXR means that you swiftly undertake that 18-wheeler before it can come across your lane, and leaving all the other twats behind you that are coming up, struggling up the hill.
I haven't had any particular issues recently, other than that on the Fiesta ST, the throttle body split when we were driving for a weekend away. It really annoyed me. We were going out to watch something at Stratford and I didn't get to see the play because basically it's just like going idle, and then randomly because it wasn't holding steady revs when you were driving along. It would just go after a bit. The fuel injector chip my engine management chip would just get confused and go and stop sending anything to the. So you just have to coast to a stop and then pull up, turn it off, turn it back on again, and then you could then get going. But with this constant fluttering the accelerator and stuff, so I had to,
because it was getting way too much air,
yeah.
wasn't it?
it just
So it
couldn't
couldn't
manage the
manage
throttle, the fuel mix at all. So
Yeah.
I had to drive that back from basically about 2/3 of the way to Stratford. And it did occur to me that if it had been, any of me and either of you going to that night out in Stratford, we would have made the theatre and gone and watched the show and just gone, very much in the, writing on a piece of cardboard on the Ford Sierra out the back of Hammersmith Apollo, the car has broken down and fetching assistance, please do not tow, and then going in to see Dio. having gone at 55 down the hard shoulder through a massive traffic jam in the rain because the car was overheating. We would have just gone for it, but it would have meant driving through the middle of Stratford. And you know what a nadgery little ass monkey the middle of Stratford is, because the hotel was right opposite the fucking theatre. It would have just been, it would have been constantly going, ram, like sounding like the worst kind of boy racer bellend every time you put up at the fucking, and then the only thing you could do was just turn it off. Then of course you're constantly having to get going again and turn it back on. Now these days, actually, you sort of sound like you're being eco and having a lot of cars do that stop start, rather than just you're driving a piece of shit and fucking do what it's told. So no, as it was, we came home instead, claimed on travel insurance.
That Dio night, what I remember about that Dio night, apart from the fact that I saw Dio in San Francisco, but that night in London, he was much, much better. We stayed, Ollie and I stayed just near, like with the family. Last summer when we were in England, we stayed just near there. And the first night we were staying, Dana had to work, and Ollie and I strolled around and looked all around, and I was like, whoa, this was where I saw Dio. Do you remember when we came out, we bought water, drank the water, peed in the bottles, and then poured it into the radiator? I remember doing that. That's the only time I've ever literally put pee in. The other thing I remember about that was it overheating and us being like, what the fuck are we going to do? Let's just get over on the hard shoulder. And then we were like, heater on, windows down. Do you remember? It was like a rainy night, and we drove up the hard shoulder with the B flashers on. And then if you got to the front, the police were like, the road's open. And you were like, top stuff, drop to third and accelerate away kind of thing, wasn't it?
We were getting such evil stares from all the poor fuckers in the traffic as we just drove up the hard shoulder. Yeah.
All right.
That's Ford's. Bash on the heater, full max, vents on. Don't know why it works.
Oh no, the reason it works is that the water normally goes engine to radiator, engine to radiator, engine to radiator. If you turn the heater on, it goes engine to radiator to heater matrix to engine to radiator. So it has a longer journey.
Oh, so it's just taking more energy out of it before it goes back in. Oh, I got you.
We mentioned your Cavalier SRI there. Greek, was that the cheapest car you ever bought? That's my next question. Cheapest car you ever bought?
It was, yeah.
It's 30 quid.
Cavalier SRI.
30 quid.
50 quid.
Gammy?
50 quid, yeah.
I think the cheapest vehicle I've ever bought was that Honda Cub 90 that I think I bought for 190 quid.
Try, you're not even trying. I paid $20 for that Kawasaki KZ that I bought. Dens, NFL or Premiership?
NFL.
All right.
Easily. It's the.
I'm not even asking you, Mark, because I know it's NFL.
It's the greatest team sport on the planet. Full stop.
Best movie car?
Mad Max Ford Falcon.
Yeah, there's a lot you can be saying for that. Only because I've been recently liking him, I'll go with that Ronin S8. After he ported it, invented it, and tweaked it and stuff. That had a good time.
Right.
Or is it the Sux 6000 from RoboCop?
Ah, still got the factory sticker on it. Yes.
I'll buy that for $1.
6,000 SUX.
Favorite car of the moment?
I want to have a go in one of those Yaris GRs.
Yeah,
we don't get the Corolla GRs over. I'd be interested. We don't get them here. I'd be interested in that, but you get them in the US. We don't get them. But like that is a cool looking piece of kit. That Yaris GR, 300 horsepower in a fucking titchy ass proper homologation special.
I had to go with my mate's Tesla, and I know it was my first experience of an electric car, and it just it's pretty fucking far removed from the old definition of a car. But,
yes.
the performance that it could deliver was just on a level beyond anything that I'd driven in. You know, when we sat in the ring taxi and that guy bombed us round, and like we were like, "Fuck, this is like, he's doing stuff we would never do." That's what the sort of step up to the Tesla felt like.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like the whole rest of it, like the screen and it like telling you when you're like not in the middle of the lane and all that crap. Like, fuck off, I'm driving you.
Yeah, they are. I say to people now, because I had a clash with a student about 5 years ago where I'd said, look, they're just not cars. To me, Teslas are just not cars. And so in other words, at that time, I hadn't yet come to terms with just how revolutionary they were in terms of moving forward with how we define the car. What I think what's been interesting for me is with Tesla, the way they sort of were revolutionary and have since then have just done things like improve the build quality and tweak and improve. And where once they were, like IKEA furniture next to a Porsche, now they're in the same breath as a Porsche.
Don't you think, or are you excited by any, like there's, I mean, electric hot hatches coming out now, isn't there? And I do like that idea.
Yeah, that Renault one, Gammy, that Alpine that's like the Renault 5 Turbo. I saw some stuff about that. We talked about that on this pod. That is an interesting car. I was going to say my favorite vehicle at the moment. I didn't have one when I asked you the question, but there is something that's popped into my mind. It's led me to be surfing online these particular vehicles. I like this BMW CE04 scooter. This BMW electric scooter. It's the first electric vehicle I've looked at and thought, that's bloody cool. And the driver is that around the city, there's these Neo mopeds that you can rent as part of I can't remember the name of the service now, but whatever, it's like scooter rental, and they limit them. They're Neo scooters, and they limit them to 30 miles an hour. They're great fun for around town. It's a really good idea to do these kind of things, but 30 miles an hour is too slow. So I was looking for some cheapy little electric thing that could do 50 miles an hour. I feel like 50 miles an hour is the 50 miles an hour, and you can park easily. That seems to me to be the sweet spot. But those machines all seem to be about sort of $2,000 at the moment. Of course, the BMW's more than that. It's like $4,000. But I saw them when we were on holiday in Paris last summer. I'm really interested in a moped environment.
Dude, $13,000.
Oh, have I looked at the price? Was it no? It's for.
I mean, I always thought, I'll just look it up whilst we're chatting because I couldn't picture it. And then I thought, I have seen a picture of that. And at the top of the page, I'm on the BMW CE04 from 12,850 quid.
They're not as expensive as that here, but they're still pretty expensive. They're still more expensive than I'm going to be spending on one. I'm just saying, I'm quite fascinated by them. If money was no object.
Oh, look, I like the avant-garde looks.
Yeah, that's what I love. It's like you were talking about that suitcase one, Gammy. That suitcase moped that looks like a suitcase. I like that as well, but that's one of the ones that's limited to 30 miles an hour, which is all right if you've like popped out of the tube and you just need to go somewhere. But for me, getting around suburbia but you need 50 miles an hour, and I'm ready to do two wheels on city streets more than on a dual carriageway because the speeds are too high on a dual carriageway. On city streets, the speeds are kind of lower, and I know San Francisco, and that's a use case that I feel like I could use. Testarossa or GT3?
GT3.
Yeah, I probably would take the GT3 as well.
I'm really not sure. On that note, gents, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Shut the fucking mouth!
This episode has been brought to you by Grand Touring Motorsports as part of our Motoring Podcast Network. For more episodes like this, tune in each week for more exciting and educational content from organizations like the Exotic Car Marketplace, the Motoring Historian, Break Fix, and many others. If you'd like to support Grand Touring Motorsports and the Motoring Podcast Network, sign up for one of our many sponsorship tiers at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. Please note that the content, opinions, and materials presented and expressed in this episode are those of its creator, and this episode has been published with their consent. If you have any inquiries about this program, please contact the creators of this episode via email or social media as mentioned in the episode.